There I was, finally recognizing that I had some deep wounds that needed healing. And then everything started to fall apart all at once. I ended up having sick kids. I got sick. I had computer crashes, infections, back injuries, and a depression that made me want to hide from literally everybody. And I felt like, is this spiritual warfare trying to stop me from my calling now that I've figured out the healing that needs to happen? Was it God's protection from continuing something that I was never meant to do or something that I wasn't ready for? Or was it something else entirely? And today I'm sharing what I discovered in all of this when God began this preparation within me and this process within my life, and how sometimes what ends up feeling like everything is falling apart is actually everything falling back into place for something greater. And after recognizing some areas that I needed deeper healing in, I thought that the hard part was over, and it definitely was not. I just thought that seeing all of it would somehow fix it, but I never addressed it. And that's when everything started to go wrong all at once. And so I'm going to be sharing that with you in today's episode. Watched anything in my stories or any part of my social media or just know me in general, you will know that the past 6 months has been really rough. So over a period of 2 months, we had a lot of weather, and it ended up having about 10 out of school days. Within those days, my oldest was home for a week sick, so there was an additional 7 days. I was sick for 5 weeks straight. My youngest got sick for a few days. So I was like, okay, that's just life. And then, all of that started happening. Then my laptop that I had of 6 years just stopped working out of the blue one day. So I went in, got a brand new one. The week later, like to the day, that one just crashed for the exact same reasons. When I went in, they kind of tried to diagnose it at the Apple store, and they were like, I don't know. We have no idea why it just stopped working. In that time, of course, I had some things backed up, but not everything saved. And I ended up getting another infection. I got kidney stones. And then at 33, when I was doing the dishes, I threw my back out. Like, who does that? I promise I'm not that old. But so I, was stuck in bed for a week, and it was as soon as one thing would, start to feel better, something else came on. And then I ended up going through this depression, and I don't believe it was based on all of those things. It started to slowly come on, but ultimately it hit me all at once, and it hit me like a wall. And it's something that I'm currently working through. But it got me to a point where I didn't want to do any more podcast recordings. I didn't want to socialize with anyone, barely even my family, right? Like, I just wanted to be around my husband and my kids. Sometimes, other family members, but I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to socialize. It all felt so fake to me. And there's moments where it still does. It still feels like that. Like, I have no energy to be social, and it's just not me. I mean, I'm not an overly social person. I do enjoy my solitude. I am like an ambivert, but to the degree that it was nothing that I'd ever experienced. And it's something that I'm still trying to work through overcoming. And I remember telling my husband that I feel like I'm never going to get out of this. This doesn't feel like me. I just don't feel like myself at all. And it just caused me to really retreat. And at first, I wondered if it was spiritual warfare, like the laptop thing. That didn't even make any sense. The enemy trying to stop me from moving forward with Eden and Empire. Like, it just kept pushing me down. But what I learned is that it's actually not always just spiritual warfare. Because honestly, even if it was, I'm not going to give the enemy that kind of power. I choose to find the good. And sometimes there's beauty in the pause and the reflection. So I'm going to choose on that end. And I believe that God works everything out for good. And, you know, God orchestrating it in that way. But then sometimes it's just life. Like sometimes you just get sick and weather happens and out of school days. So I can recognize this. But what I ended up realizing is that God was creating a space for deeper preparation because Eden and Empire is different from anything that I have ever built before. And these other pieces of my business that were successful, because I do have a very successful business, and I integrated Eden and Empire into it. And so they all work together as an ecosystem, but Eden and Empire are so different. And what I feel like he has called me to do specifically through Eden and Empire is not only just glorify him, but to impact thousands. And bridging the gap between spiritual and business. And that level of influence, that level of impact requires a lot of deeper preparation. And this isn't, to me, it's not just about business tactics. It's about helping women break generational curses, which is exactly what I feel like God needed to call me through, and to find my identity truly in him and not to question every single piece of it, and build this much needed gap between business and faith and family. And I think that threatens the enemy more than what I'm doing with my other business, with the other pieces of my business, and it affects him more directly. But more importantly, I think that it requires this level of spiritual maturity for me to have in order to have this wholeness that I can experience and help women experience from a place of true understanding. And that level of, that level of business success, I think, comes from having that deeper understanding. And when, as I'm building all of this, I know that like what I'm building could be more than just, it could affect more than just the women that I'm directly speaking to, right? Like I know that it could help their families, it could help their children, their communities, the other people that they speak to within their business. And God needed to ensure that I was prepared for this ripple effect. And since I'm specifically helping women build from a place of wholeness rather than woundedness, I had to fully experience all of that within my own journey first. And so even in the past few weeks, I feel like God knew that I still needed this deeper preparation because I don't think that I had addressed it in a lot of ways, and he had to strip it down even farther. And it wasn't punishment, but in the past few weeks, I think I've felt this deep sense of loneliness and separation from him. And I remember there was one day I went to church and I was like mad. I didn't worship, like I didn't sing. I just stood there. I didn't feel like I could feel him in my life. He felt separated. Everything that I had experienced in the past few months felt like he was mad at me. And obviously that wasn't the case, but he knew that there was a level of healing that he had to strip down even further because I wasn't addressing it. And it wasn't punishment. Like I said, it was for something greater that I have never had to experience with past businesses before. And I feel like it'll still be a work in progress. And I know that God often prepares his leaders in healing and wholeness. And, as I was going through this journey, I would open the Bible and I would read a lot, and I would look at patterns that I would find throughout scripture so that it could help me through this process. And what I would found and what kind of popped up a lot for me was the promised land. And, Moses had spent 40 years in this wilderness before, leading Israel. And David, who was even anointed as a king, went through prison, he went through betrayal, and he ended up becoming the second command in Egypt. And so, God isn't just calling us and then immediately releasing us into the destiny that he has planned for us. He prepares us for all of this. The best example, and I think this is what helped me a lot, is that Jesus would withdraw himself after he would preach, and he would go and pray and have reflection. And even Jesus, who was perfect, modeled the importance of stepping away from ministry sometimes to be with the Father and maintain our spiritual health. And so in all of this, that's why I struggled with sharing it, because I was like, I don't want anyone to see this as me walking away when some aspect of it is hard. But the truth is that we can't give from what we don't have. And if we're leading from wounds or insecurity or areas of brokenness, I think what ends up happening is we unconsciously end up reproducing those same issues in the people that we're leading or that we're called to serve, because hurt people, right? Like you've probably heard that part before, but I feel like in that same sense, healed people heal people. And this is why I think God was really calling me to pause, not because what I was doing wrong, even though that's what it felt like in a lot of areas. But I think it was because he knew that I had the capacity to lead, and that he wanted to ensure that I was doing that from a place of the most whole version of myself before I stepped into it fully, before, we launched so many things. So it being and taking place in the beta stages of Eden and Empire, he knew that it had to happen before we could experience that next level. And I want to just be really clear on that. That's not me running away from anything, and it's not this pattern that you can expect to see from me, because again, I've built businesses that are successful, and I've pushed through the times of difficulty, but now was the perfect opportunity. It's like kind of building a house, and everything I do is in my teachings with branding and marketing and with business is all about working on having a strong foundation, just like a house, right? You wouldn't skip the foundation work just to get to the fun part of decorating, a lot faster. So I think that it ensures that what I'm doing will last, because I don't just want what the world wants, and that's, building. So you end up building quick, and that often ends up leading to crashing quickly for a lot of people. And I want Eden and Empire to be built on solid foundations that went through preparation. And God told me a while ago in my sleep, I know it was while I was building Eden and Empire. He said, build it strong and they will come. And I believe that's what this is. So I feel like women need leaders who have done the inner work, the hard parts of it, not just those who've learned to perform really quickly. And they need someone who can speak from experience about God's faithfulness in all seasons and all the challenges that we face, and to share those challenges. I'm so big on sharing things because I feel like oftentimes this isn't what gets shared. And women feel this place of imposter syndrome, or that they're not worthy because they don't see others struggling with the same thing. The world builds really fast and it fixes the problems later. And when you're building a kingdom business, God builds through preparation, and he builds it to last. And I'm choosing his method over the worldly method because I feel like I'm building from a place of wholeness and maturity that can help other generations. I want to build a lasting legacy. And when I'm building from incomplete preparation, it creates the cycles that end up needing to be rebuilt later. So I'd rather do it now than to do it when things are bigger. And I want to acknowledge that for other people, you may not be struggling with rejection. You might not have rejection wounds, but you may have something within you or within your business or something within your family that is keeping you from going to that next level. And a lot of times we are unaware of it, or we may think we've healed from it, but it could look completely different than mine. And whatever that might look like for you, whether that's a teacher saying that you weren't smart enough, or you had a friend group that excluded you, or, you were often overlooked in your family. For me, it was just it was my father wounds. Those are what I've addressed for right now. That was my entry point. And rejection for me shows up in countless ways. And I think for a lot of people, they don't realize how much some of the things that they're struggling with show up in their lives. And so maybe my hope would be that me sharing all of this encourages you to want to build strong, and that these challenges that you're facing in your business, whether you are forward facing with your faith or it's guiding you, it doesn't really matter what that looks like. But these challenges that you're facing, or the roadblocks, they might not be failure. Or they're not failure. Sorry, they're not failure. And it might end up being God's invitation for you to go deeper and for you to be prepared for this next level. So it's okay to take longer. It's okay to take longer in your business if it means building something that truly honors God and it serves his people and it serves them well. Like, I want to say that again, like, it's okay to take longer. There's no timeline. It's God's time, right? And he's developing you for the impact that he has planned. So I'm not hiding this preparation process. I'm going to be showing it on social media. I wanted to go more in depth with it, so that's why I did this episode, this series. And I feel like I'm committed. I've always known that I'm committed to doing this God's way. And in any way, even if it takes longer, that's okay. Because what he builds through me and through people who are prepared and have gone through what they need to go through, it creates a real impact. And so my question for you is God actually asking you to build strong or to build fast, right? And do you have areas of preparation that you need to fix before you go into this next season? Because sometimes the most countercultural thing that you can do is getting this instant gratification, in this instant gratification world, is to wait for God and his timing and build with him instead of what the world tells you that you need to build with. And so in this next episode, I am going to just be diving into what to do. Maybe you've identified all these things, but like, what do you do when God calls you to do something and you're questioning every single step? Or how do you keep moving when you can't see the whole picture? And, what if you have this level of healing that needs to happen? What does that mean? So I encourage you to watch this next episode. It'll be the last episode in this 5-part series, and I hope it's helpful. I will see you there.